The dojo is just a laboratory. Let me clarify. When you are training, now I'm using the context of martial arts because that's what we're talking about here, but understand that this applies to anything that's claiming to be functional athletics or even sports. Bodybuilding is bodybuilding. It's purely in the laboratory and on the stage. There is no chaos element to it, but you have to understand that life is extremely chaotic, and even within the sporting arena, there is an incredible amount of chaos that is not present during training. Now, I want you to start thinking of it as, you've got all sorts of books and lectures and training manuals and videos. These are your textbooks, your reference guides. These are the things that, if you're clever, you can learn, good 75-80% of what you need to know just there. If you're clever. But the majority of us need teachers and training partners. And that being the case, we need a place where we can test out these ideas and run experiments and play and research. So the dojo, the training facility, the gym becomes a laboratory for us to put ideas through the paces, to be able to sterilize the environment a little bit so that we can really focus in on the parts that we truly believe matter the most in order to train. And this sterilized environment allows us to train to an extremely high degree of capability. But because the chaos element is largely removed, we tend to reach those levels without ever thinking, oh, this could go wrong. You see, any time that you can make a technique work, 100% of the time, 95% of the time, any time that you can make it work, it means that you have removed variables, you have removed the chaos. See, life is highly non-linear, solution-free. There are things where you just pretty much kind of come out on the other end and you really didn't reach another solution. And even where the equations are linear, they're extraordinarily complex. So you have to understand that the majority of people never exit the laboratory. The entirety of their work is done in the laboratory, and they can tell you how the body moves well. They can tell you, what works against what under sterilized conditions, under ideal conditions, because that's really what technique training is. It's idealized conditions. And there are some experiments that you can run with a greater degree of chaos, not cleaning up the formula so much and just kind of plugging it into a more organic or fractal situation. And you can do that. That's what sparring is. And then there's the sporting arena. There's competition. There's games. There's all sorts of these outer things where you're no longer just working with your colleagues and familiar formulas. You're working, with an international group or a regional group or whatever. Mixing ideas, blending ideas, pitting ideas against each other. It's like a science fair. But that's all it is. You're just taking it from your laboratory into a more broad laboratory style competition. It's still very sterilized. It will give you a good test of your personal resolve. It'll give you a good test of your conditioning, your ability to take a punch, to deliver a punch. There's nothing wrong with those things, but you have to understand that even that is not as real as it gets. Unfortunately, to get to the point where we are research scientists, where we are the ones that are discovering new ground and testing things for ourselves. We're not the ones that are always going on, the African safari to study troops of baboons. Then you really get to see what's going on, because you're no longer in a sterilized setting. There are so many factors going on that you can't even account for, much less the myriad of ones that you can account for, which make the equation so ridiculously complex in the first place. So there really are some who are well experienced, who are educated and well experienced, and can bring all of that into the next level, the next generation of the science. And we can refine our laboratory practice. But you have to understand that without those on the experiential side, without those in law enforcement, military, private security, corrections, honestly, gangs and thuggery and street violence, those who have been both predator and prey, without those experiences, your formulas don't mean a whole lot. And you have to realize that when these martial arts that we study were built, they were built during a time where there was no police, where the military had better things to do with its time than to protect you. In fact, where the military might in fact have been the bully, where the government might have in fact been the bully. The government's always the bully, but you know what I'm saying. It's important to understand and make the distinction that if you are training only in your gym, then you are only a laboratory technician, and that's it. You only understand things from an idealized perspective, from a sterilized environment. If you are a competitive martial artist, competitive dresseur, a competitive CrossFitter or footballer or whatever, you have to understand that even within those competitions there are well-defined parameters that define the competition, and barring some unexpected outside force invading, you can pretty much count on just a wider variety of results, but still within a certain general range of cause and effect, because you're still in a semi-sterilized environment. So you can be an athlete, you can be an elite athlete, no problem, and you can call yourself an elite athlete, no problem. But it does not make you a chaos management specialist, a violence professional. So you have to understand that you really have to know your role and where you are. I've never been a policeman or a corrections officer. I've never been private security. I've never been in a job that requires me to get down and dirty with people that want to hurt me or somebody under my care. I am a laboratory technician and an athlete. It's what I do. I'm a nerd. I study and I experiment and I play, and I bring these ideas to the people who may use them. But I bring them to you with the message that these are just ideas. They are only ideas. Nothing is 100%. Nothing is guaranteed to work. You will be surprised what you can live through. You'll be surprised at what you can stay conscious through. And by the same token, you'll be surprised at how little it takes to take you out. You never know. There are just too many variables. So never, ever misunderstand your place. Never misunderstand that your fancy kicks and your high athleticism is great. It's a personal achievement, and you have walked the path of self-actualization beautifully, but you are not necessarily somebody who knows and understands the chaos of the real world unless you have walked it and lived it and survived it and been able to analyze it. It's good to make friends with people who have, even if you yourself have no intention of doing so, so you can at least get some perspective. You may only get a 50% perspective, but it's better than having the illusion that life is a sparring match, because it's not. Life is a whole hell of a lot more violent than that. I'm going to stop rambling. I've been ranting a lot lately and giving you guys long videos, so thanks for sticking around and watching and putting up with me, and I will talk to you later. Good journey.